Hi, I'm Jim Gordon.
And I'm Alita Leapins.
And welcome to another edition of Our City Tonight.
Well, we're here at one of our favorite spots, Hydra Restaurant, and we're in their Cabana Lounge.
Love this room. Of course, you and I have had a couple parties in this room we're in right now, so it's not all work, but we're going to get right to the work, and after this, you'll see the next edition of Our City Tonight.
This segment is sponsored by the Richmond Sentinel, providing news, entertainment, and human interest stories in print and online.
He's a Canadian author and music rock and roll historian. He has chronicled the songs and artists who have given us some of the most memorable music, memories, and soundtracks of our lives. His latest book is called Moments in Time, stories about artists from the 50s, 60s, and 70s for fans of music from a music fan. It is a great pleasure to welcome Tom Locke to our show. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Great to be here.
Hey, great to have you here. And I should say, Tom, I'm going to blow your horn just a little bit here before we start talking. On Amazon.com, all the reviews for your new book are 100% 5-star positive. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you very much. It's extremely well received out there in the marketplace, and just really thrilled about it.
I can see why. This is just a series of chapters that, and I mean this as a compliment, that read like your radio segments, where each chapter is a couple pages long. What is great, you should tell viewers too, is that every chapter comes with a barcode, which allows people to download the song you're talking about. You take it from there.
Thank you. Well, the barcode part, that's what we call a unique selling principle. There is no book like it in the world, in the marketplace today. And what it is, our stories are 2 pages. At the conclusion of the story, there's a small QR code in the left-hand corner. You simply put your smartphone over it, camera, click it, and it goes right to the song. Instant gratification.
And what's interesting too is you have such enticing titles. I mentioned to you one of them that caught my eye, even in the preface, was about Tommy James and how does he come up with Moni Moni? Like, you create these great titles and then you explain them. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about too is that and we're kind of in this age category where you go back to the dawn of rock and roll, where for lack of a better phrase, producers were starting to mine the black R&B music to try to bring it over to the top 40, predominantly white audience. You've got some great chapters. Talk about that era.
Well, that is a fascinating era to me, and actually my favorite era. It's so eclectic in the 50s, and there's no doubt about it. With the evolution of the teenager and the ability to buy, corporate America saw, hey, there's a great opportunity to take some great music from R&B singers and country singers as well, and have them re-recorded and get them out in the marketplace with artists who had great followers. Now, a lot of these artists were white. However, the people playing the records, our DJs, the people we looked up to, it wasn't about the color, it was about what the teenagers wanted to hear. Very key, significant difference. But it definitely changed the culture moving forward, and music actually became a leader in integration.
Very true, and we should mention you are, beside the book, you're also working on a documentary on that period.
That's right. It's about actually the evolution of rock and roll as seen through the eyes of the DJ. The DJs are very powerful in the 50s and 60s. Regionally, they're all around, and yet they were only known for that region per se, but they were legends. Case in point, we have one right here with Red Robinson. Yeah,
an inspiration Red is. I mean, he brought rock and roll to this city, symbolically, I guess you could say, and he's still, if you put him in a studio right now, he could still bang out a 2 or 3 hour show. Let's talk a bit about where we can also hear your show. You've been doing it on Michael Godin, another local success story. His show, Treasure Island Oldies. You've had basically the audio version of this book.
That is true. What happened, Michael started the show in 1997. Good friends. And we said, hey, you know what? Why don't we create one of these Paul Harvey?
Paul Harvey. Look that guy up, folks. Yeah. And now you know the rest of the story. It's fabulous.
Anyway, we decided to let's put something out like that. We'll do a 2-minute segment. You can play the song at the end of the piece, and we'll go from there. So we've been doing that for 21 years. So every Sunday night, you can hear my new Moment in Time.
I want to do a shout out to Michael, a really good guy, as is Phil Maxey, who's helped us out with this interview. The book is called Moments in Time, Stories About Artists and Songs from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. For fans of music, from a music fan, and he certainly is, it's Tom Locke. We'll have all Tom's information, where you can find this book, all that and more in the closing credits. Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
This segment was sponsored by the Richmond Sentinel, providing news, entertainment, and human interest stories in print and online.
Posing for photos with companion animals dates back hundreds of years, and now pet portraits are super popular. And joining us from a great college town, Guelph, Ontario, we have Laura Harper. She is an animal lover and the founder of the highly realistic pet portraits, Adlea's Art. Welcome to our city tonight.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So excited to have you. Laura, you have a master's in animal behavior and welfare, and you're also a certified professional dog trainer. Tell us how you started Adlea's Art, as well as how it has evolved in your life.
Yeah, so I have always drawn since I was a kid. I don't really remember it a whole lot, but I have sketchbooks full of drawings of animals and things of all kinds. And so it was always just a hobby to me. And I went for a job interview at a pet sitting company. And one of the things they asked me about was, what are your hobbies? And so I said, oh, I like to draw, animals and things like that. And they said, do you sell them? And that was the first time I ever thought, maybe I can. I'd never thought of that. And so I experimented with a few different styles, and my first portrait ever was a portrait of my friend's cats. And I said, I'll do this portrait for you and you can take me out to lunch. And she said, okay, well, how fancy the lunch is how good I think the portrait is. And so we ended up going for quite a nice little lunch at a bistro, and that's kind of where it got started.
Fantastic. Now, the namesake of your art project, Adlea, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Adlea was my horse, and she was a horse that I had when I was in high school, and just a very, very special horse, fierce and just really, really amazing. And it's always been kind of the name that I use for online stuff because it's not a common name, so people don't forget it. The handles on social medias are never taken, so I just kind of started using that for a lot of my online profiles. And when I started the business, it was the obvious name, and I never really had to think of what name I would call it. It was just, it's Adlea's Art. What else would I call it?
I was introduced, obviously, to your art through your mom, and I was just blown away. And I know a lot of people do pet portraits, but for some reason, yours they are absolutely heart-stopping. They're gorgeous. You also do wildlife art as well. How do you find having a master's in animal behavior? How does that help with doing your art?
One of the things that I try and bring to my art is, first off, the connection and the relationship that people have with their animals. And, being somebody who's studied animal behavior and animal welfare, there's that deeper understanding of what animals can mean to us. And so I try and bring that through in my portraits, the relationship between a pet owner and their pet. And for the wildlife, one of my passions is reading about weird wildlife and strange animals that people might not have heard of. And so I love drawing things like insects and, kind of obscure animals that people may not have heard of, to try and bring that awareness and show that, even the creepy crawly bugs, if you find them in the right light, they can be just as beautiful and just as amazing as, the very charismatic megafauna like the lions and the tigers and elephants and things like that. Although I do draw many of those too.
Now, I'm a big fan of your bug series with your the birthstone bug series. I'm just going to encourage all the viewers to take a look at that on your website. Laura, absolute pleasure to have you on. I know you're also a certified dog trainer. We're going to have all your information in our rolling credits at the end of the show, and just love your art. I'm so glad that it was a hobby. Now it turned into something that's a little bit more than that. I know you're commissioning a lot of art and people are on a waiting list, but definitely worth it. Your work is gorgeous. So thanks for joining us today, and we wish you much success in the future.
Thanks so much. It was great to be here.
Well, that wonderful graphic shows you that it's time for another movie review segment. Lita and I are going to talk about a few things from, boy, almost everybody's favorite site to go to, and that's Netflix. Lita, you're going to kick it off with something I've not seen, but it sounds mysterious, dark, and interesting.
There seems to be a trend on Netflix right now for the true crime con artist stories, and that one in particular, Bad Vegan, Fame, Fraud, Fugitives. It's gripping, definitely. Here is a true story. It's a 4-part documentary series, and it really is going to be the next most talked about con artist story, I'm sure. No, it follows Sarma Mengelis. She's Latvian, by the way.
As are you. I'm starting to see something happening here. All right.
The storyline is built around her. She basically is a celebrity restaurateur, and she was behind that really cool New York hotspot called Pure Food and Wine. She was big in the news back in 2014, 2015. What is it alleged that she did? She was alleged to have stolen from her employees to finance a lifestyle of her then husband, Anthony Strangus. This is where it gets really interesting because he is a con artist. They follow her in the Netflix documentary. She's now out of jail. It's this whole con artist series, like with Tinder Swindler and Inventing Anna, which I'll talk about after, is fascinating because you kind of think you're picking sides. But anyways, particular this Netflix documentary follows this vegan queen into this dark spiral of trusting this man she meets, of course.
Well, I don't like the way you said of course. But,
well, no, not online. She meets through a potential mutual celebrity friend. So the story is fascinating, and the ending also leaves you kind of hanging. So you make your own decisions about was she really complicit, or did she really get swindled and get basically convinced to do this through this really slick con artist.
What's the title again?
It is Bad Vegan, Fame, Fraud, Fugitives. You can't believe it's real, but it is real.
You know, no wonder you're getting so dark. Actually, watching all these shows, and she is also Latvian like you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we won't mention that.
Okay, I've got one now that I watch way too much sports, but one of my dear friends, Neil, who is also a creative consultant on our show, he's a big F1 fan, and I just through him started to follow it a little bit, and he got me into this Netflix show called F1 Drive to Survive. Season 4 just came out recently, and I got to tell you, this series does something really well, Lita. It is so well done. The production values are so high, so strong, that it keeps someone like him, who's a fanatical F1 fan, keeps a guy like that excited, and is still exciting and explains enough to someone like me who's kind of a neophyte when it comes to this sport. It follows last season, and if you don't know the sport well, and it's doing really well on Netflix, it's developed a whole new arena of fans, but this is just about the season, the circuit, and really comes down to two of the top drivers from Mercedes and Red Bull, Max Verstappen and 7-time champion Englishman Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen is Dutch, but they also focus on different teams that are kind of lower down the list in terms of the pecking order. Really enjoyed this, and it wraps up so brilliantly. It's so dramatic. And I didn't know how the season ended up, so it was really exciting to watch. But as I said to you before, when you can get someone like my buddy Neil, who loves that sport, and me, who's just learning, and we both still enjoy it equally, that is something that is well done, and it's fabulous. Of course, F1 is on right now, so look for Formula One Drive to Survive, Season 4. It is available now. Okay, you've got something else that's dark yet again. Mine was exciting and drama and sports, and then you've got something else, the last one to go.
Another dark one.
This is called Inventing Anna.
Yeah, well, this is a hot documentary. Well, it's based on a true story. It actually is a docu-story. Inventing Anna follows the story of the German heiress who steals the hearts of New York social scene, but she steals her money as well, and she has this lavish lifestyle, but no one can really figure out if she's the world's biggest con woman or she just is following the American dream. This story actually follows Anna and the reporter, and they create this love-hate bond where she tells her story, and fascinating story. It stars one of my favorites, Julia Garner, who you folks will recognize from Ozark. Everyone's favorite in that, and Anna
Chlumsky. I love Anna Chlumsky.
Yeah, from Veep. Yeah,
I would say I haven't watched it yet, but when you mention it to me, the showrunner, executive producer, everything. What's her name? Is
Shonda Rhimes.
Yeah,
she is known for so many things: Grey's Anatomy, Private Practice, as well as that thriller series Scandal. Again, Inventing Anna is definitely worth watching. Fascinating story, and it's not just a man con artist; it's a woman. So
well, thank you for that. Hey, there are anyway. Enjoy. We hope you enjoy what we suggested, all on Netflix now, and that is this edition of the Our City Tonight movie review. He has been our consumer and retail expert on Our City Tonight for our entire 7-year history. It's always great to welcome David Ian Gray back to our show. He is also the principal at Dig 360, a firm dedicated to retail and retail-minded executives. David, oh, isn't he nice? He's joining us from tranquil, peaceful Long Island, New York. I love the background you got going there, David. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Jim. That's Noyak Bay right back there, and it's nice to be able to fly in virtually and do this.
I'm glad to see you're not in a tie in that environment, but we'll get right to things. Last time you were on with Lita, I guess about a month and a half ago, we were talking about something that was in the news, and that was of course, the supply chain breakdown, the supply chain shortage on products. That's still an issue, but today we're going to talk about something that you're seeing everywhere in the news, the papers, online, and that is inflation. Can you break it down for us, for our viewers, because I know there's different examples of it. You pick it up from there.
Yeah, I know it's one of those scary words. We start to hear about it, and as consumer shoppers, we get it actually affects our consumer confidence, even if it's happening or not happening. But there are two types of inflation. I think it's important to note. One is product price inflation, and I'll get to that in a moment. And the other one is monetary inflation, which is kind of your bank rates going up. The first one, though, product price inflation, was starting toward the end of last year because we were getting, it ties back in with the supply chain issue. We were getting shortages of some products, but not all. And supply and demand kicks in. So we start to see some price creep because of that. And I'll give an example, grocery items, produce was one that people have really taken note of. For a whole separate reason, furniture's gone up because Canada's put a tariff on imports from China and Vietnam of that kind of product. So we're seeing that go up. There's a bunch of reasons happening, but not. I could get a MacBook at the same price today as it would have been a year ago. So it's not every product going up, but also the input prices to a lot of the activities behind retail and behind consumer goods. And a really excellent example would be gasoline. It's affecting the consumer, but it's also affecting the transport of all the product that is coming into our homes, including online, but also to stores. And that price has to be borne somewhere, so it's getting passed on, as are other aluminum. There's a bunch of other things in the same boat.
David, I want to wrap up with independent business. Of course, we see what inflation does. We read about the multinational corporations that are located everywhere. How is this affecting, with the seconds we have left, how is this affecting the local businesses that people frequent on a daily basis, let's say?
Yeah, so there's two types of local. One is local stores. And a lot of local stores actually sell imported products just like the big guys. Some are sourcing from the same sources, others find other points of origin, but they're relying on imports. So they're in this very same, a mom and pop retailer who's doing that is under the same pressures, and even more so because they don't have a lot of buying clout or leverage in the supply chain. The other player in this would be locally made, locally manufactured or produced items. There's actually a big opportunity for that class, and some are seizing on it already. And they're making things in BC, and they may be selling to any retailer or online, but they have stock. And so there's an opportunity for them when there's shortages elsewhere in a product category to really be aggressive and land some accounts that they didn't have before. And if you're an independent retailer who's struggling with supply, you know, maybe turn to who's in your backyard that can fit your assortment. And so I think that's important for shoppers. We know that shoppers want to shop local, but they've been in our research with Leger that we've done. We know that they're concerned about the price of locally made, and they're concerned about the selection. And so as these things get improved, and if the price gap with imports starts to shrink a bit, we may see a tipping point where people are more likely to spend a little bit more on locally made.
Always great expert advice. David Ian Gray is our retail and consumer expert, also principal at Dig 360. We'll have all David's information in our closing credits. David, thanks for joining us. Go outside and enjoy what I'm seeing in the background for the weekend, and we'll see you when you're back in Vancouver. He's an award-winning singer-songwriter. I got that right finally. But a lot of people don't. He's also an acclaimed artist. It's a great pleasure to welcome Paul Hyde to our city tonight. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thanks for being patient as I got the introduction out of the way. Hey, let's start with your work, and we got a piece of your art between us. First, would you tell our audience who may not know, you work a lot with resin. What is that, and what do you use it for?
Yeah, it's acrylic polymer resin it's plastic, and the artwork is built up in layers from the back to the top, from back to the front. I used to do it years ago, about 20 years ago. I used the same material, but it was way more toxic then.
Yeah.
You had to wear organic vapors, mask, and leave the windows open and that kind of thing. But now it's very forgiving now, the material, and with just a little bit of ventilation, it's quite safe now. So.
I saw a great line you had on your website. It was like about how you got involved with this by just touring with the payolas and your solo career. It's amazing what you can find in little towns. Is that how it all came together?
Yeah, I used to grab stuff from bookstores. I've just been cutting stuff out for years. But I would take the materials with me to make the boxes on tour, and because it was toxic, I do it in hotel bathrooms with the fan on. You know. But I did leave most of them smelling like plastic afterwards. But I used to take the materials on the road and do some stuff on the road. Yeah.
And with your long career in music, I'm always curious when you get someone, a singer, songwriter, actor, what have you, that this is an extension of the creativity. Is that how you look at it? I mean, I've known you a long time. Anytime we talk, you're always creating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different. It's a different part of the brain for the music and the art, for me anyhow. It's a little bit different, yeah. I switched off the music to do the art. I hadn't, for about 2 years ago, when COVID first started, I had a show, and then I did nothing but the art for about 1.5 years. But then again, I'm back on writing some songs for a movie right now with Bob Rock. We're doing some soundtrack stuff. So I've had to switch back in my brain, which was difficult because they are two different things, yeah.
Talk about, if you can, you mentioned Bob, the early days. Of course, Juno Award winning, you guys are touring everywhere. Are you happy you're not doing that anymore? I know you don't really like performing it, and you've been very honest with me and everybody else over the years about, man, I just don't like going on stage.
Yeah.
I'm happy to write music, which you continue to do, as you said, but when you look back at those heady days, a good ride?
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, I can't complain, for crying out loud. Yeah, we did really well. But I'm not a performer. I'm basically a shy person, and I'd rather not. I have no desire to get on stage and be worshipped, which seems to be what you need.
I know a lot more people like that than you. Yeah,
I would have done better probably, but I could care less really. I still play music with friends once a week. We've been doing that for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I still write. I still write music, but I don't perform in public anymore. I could care less.
For people out there seeing this, of course, you've got a great website. Do you do a lot of showings? Do you have exhibits often?
I've had two shows so far. One in Vancouver just before COVID started, and then one in Montreal, kind of mid-COVID, that didn't do very well for some reason.
Understandable.
Yeah, so I'm just, and I've moved up, I'm doing bigger pieces now. The pieces I was doing before were about 14 by 18. And I called them souvenirs, but these bigger ones, which I think is about the limit of the weight that they can be as well, because it's getting to about 25 pounds that, so
yeah,
it's
a
bit of a lump on the wall. Yeah.
Listen, it's been fabulous having you on. We've wanted to have you on for a while. It's paulhydeart.com. We'll have more details in the closing credits, and thank you for joining us here today, Paul. Continued success and all the best to your wonderful wife, Dana.
Thank you.
Cheers. Always like ending the show here at Hydra because they bring some food out for us to talk about, and also some wine this time. We're with Patrick, who is the events manager, and you do a whole bunch of, you're the party guy, basically.
They call me the party guy. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, justifiably so.
I'm getting busier these days.
Yes, tell us about that. With all restrictions are carefully opening again, and you are in full party mode.
Yeah, well, almost full party mode, crossing our fingers like you were earlier. Restrictions are easing. We're getting lots of inquiries for here at Hydra, as well as for other locations. We have Alouette Bistro at Hotel Le Soleil, our location in Richmond, the Freebird Table and Bar, as well as Seaside Provisions North Vancouver, which is gorgeous, right on the water.
Beautiful spots, all of them. Actually.
Hey, we've got some wine here. This is local, you're going to tell us?
Yeah. Yes. This is a local feature that we're running right now from our friends from Pamplemousse Juice. It's a great term. I love it. It's a low intervention wine. These are great. A lot less intervention.
That's the best way to describe it. And I've been salivating since you actually poured it, so we have to try
It's a sparkling Pinot Noir.
And what about the food here, Patrick?
The food, we have our whole roast leg of lamb in the Greek Forno oven with a little bit of sides. Parties, this goes great for a party. These shareable platters are fantastic at Hydra. It's what has put us on the map, really.
That's fantastic. We should also mention, as we always do, a great happy hour here and at all your locations.
That's correct, yes.
And here, you're open for breakfast?
Open for breakfast here, not just here, all 4 locations.
Excellent.
Oh, fantastic.
This is usually where I get frank and blunt and say we got to wrap the show up because we need to eat. Thank you very much. And thanks to Claire and everybody here at Hydra. Come check out the great restaurant. And the Cabana Lounge is available for your party. I'm Jim Gordon.
And I'm Lita Leapin.
We'll see you on the next edition of Our City Tonight.
Now we can cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Don't forget to check out past episodes and individual interviews, all on the Our City Tonight YouTube channel. Outdoor wear for Jim and Lita provided by Helly Hansen, alive since 1877. The Richmond Sentinel, providing news, entertainment, and human interest stories in print and online.